Maria Santos never imagined that her journey would begin in the dusty backyard of her grandfather's farm in rural Texas. The morning sun cast long shadows across the weathered fence posts as 8-year-old Maria watched her grandfather, Roberto, carefully clean his old hunting rifle. His weathered hands moved with the precision of someone who had spent decades respecting the power of firearms. "Mija," he said in his gentle voice, looking up from the rifle, "this weapon has fed our family for 40 years. It's not a toy, not a symbol of power. It's a tool that demands respect, discipline, and, above all, responsibility." Maria nodded solemnly, her small hands folded in her lap as she absorbed every word. Roberto had served in Vietnam, though he rarely spoke of those days. What he did share were the lessons that war had taught him about precision, patience, and the weight of making split-second decisions. The first time Maria held the rifle, she was 12 years old. Her grandfather guided her stance, showing her how to breathe, how to find her natural point of aim, how to squeeze the trigger with the pad of her index finger rather than the joint. The target was a simple piece of paper with concentric circles, placed 50 yards away. When the shot rang out, Maria felt the recoil push against her shoulder, but what struck her most was the absolute silence that followed. In that moment, she understood what her grandfather meant about responsibility. "You hit the outer ring," Roberto said, lowering his binoculars. "Not bad for your first shot. But, remember, every bullet you fire carries a piece of your soul with it. Make sure it's aimed at something worthy of that sacrifice." These weren't just words to Maria, they became the foundation of her character. While other children in her small town were focused on video games and social media, Maria spent her afternoons learning about ballistics, wind resistance, and the mathematics of precision shooting. Her father, Miguel, worked double shifts at the local manufacturing plant to support the family. Her mother, Carmen, managed the household budget with the skill of a financial advisor, making every dollar stretch to cover necessities. Neither parent had attended college, but they instilled in Maria the belief that education and hard work could open doors that had remained closed to previous generations. Maria excelled in school, particularly in mathematics and physics, subjects that would later prove invaluable in her military career. During her sophomore year of high school, Maria joined the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps program. The JROTC instructor, Sergeant First Class Thompson, was a no-nonsense veteran who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan. He immediately recognized something special in Maria's approach to military discipline. While other students saw JROTC as an easy credit or a way to avoid physical education, Maria treated every drill, every ceremony, every leadership exercise as preparation for something greater. Santos, Sergeant Thompson said one afternoon after watching her lead a squad through a complex drill sequence, "You have the kind of natural leadership that can't be taught. But, more importantly, you have the discipline to back it up. Have you given any thought to military service?" Maria had been considering it since her grandfather first taught her to shoot. The military represented an opportunity to serve something larger than herself while developing skills that could translate into a meaningful career. The marksmanship team became Maria's second family. Every Wednesday and Saturday, she joined fellow students at the local range, where they competed in precision shooting competitions against schools from across the state. Maria's consistency impressed even seasoned competitors. She didn't always take first place, but she rarely placed lower than third, and her scores improved steadily throughout her junior and senior years. Her breakthrough moment came during the state championship her senior year. The competition featured the most challenging course of fire Maria had ever attempted: prone, sitting, kneeling, and standing positions at distances ranging from 100 to 300 yards. Weather conditions were less than ideal, with gusty winds that changed direction every few minutes. Many competitors struggled to maintain consistency across the different stages. Maria approached each position methodically, adjusting her technique based on the specific challenges presented. In the prone position, she used her natural bone support to create a stable firing platform. During the sitting portion, she employed the cross-leg position that her grandfather had taught her, wrapping her left arm around her left knee to create additional stability. The kneeling stage required careful attention to balance, while the standing position demanded absolute focus on her natural point of aim. When the scores were tallied, Maria had achieved something unprecedented in her school's history: a perfect score in 3 of the 4 positions, with only minor point deductions in the challenging standing stage. Her overall score of 396 out of a possible 400 points placed her second in the state and earned her recognition as one of the top junior marksmen in Texas. College recruiters took notice, but Maria's heart was set on military service. She had already begun the process of enlisting in the United States Marine Corps, drawn by their reputation for precision and excellence. The Marines' emphasis on marksmanship aligned perfectly with her skills and interests. During her senior year, she worked with a local recruiter who helped her understand the various opportunities available within the Corps. Her parents initially had mixed feelings about her decision. Carmen worried about the dangers inherent in military service, while Miguel was proud that his daughter was choosing to serve her country. Roberto, however, was unequivocally supportive. "The military will give you opportunities to develop your skills in ways that civilian life never could," he told her during one of their evening conversations. "But, remember, the uniform doesn't make the person. Your character, your integrity, those come from within." The night before leaving for boot camp, Maria sat with her grandfather on the front porch of the farmhouse where she had learned to shoot. The same rifle that had introduced her to marksmanship lay across Roberto's lap, cleaned and ready for storage during her absence. "I'm proud of you, Mija," he said quietly. "You're going to face challenges that will test everything you believe about yourself. Remember that strength isn't about proving you're better than anyone else. It's about knowing who you are and staying true to that person, regardless of what others think." Boot camp at Marine Corps Recruit Depot Paris Island was everything Maria had expected and more. The physical demands were intense, but she had prepared for them through years of athletics and outdoor activities. The mental challenges were equally significant, as drill instructors worked to break down individual identities and rebuild them as Marines. Maria thrived in this environment, particularly during weapons training. Her first experience with the M16A4 service rifle exceeded her expectations. The weapon was more sophisticated than anything she had used previously, with precision capabilities that matched her developing skills. During initial marksmanship training, Maria consistently achieved scores that placed her among the top performers in her platoon. Her drill instructors took notice, not just of her shooting ability, but of her willingness to help struggling recruits improve their own marksmanship skills. Santos, senior drill instructor Gunnery Sergeant Williams said after observing her assist a fellow recruit with his shooting stance, "You have the instincts of an instructor. Have you considered pursuing marksmanship as a specialty?" The idea had crossed Maria's mind, but she hadn't fully considered the possibilities until that moment. Williams explained that the Marine Corps maintained specialized marksmanship programs for both competition and operational purposes. Graduation day arrived with the pride and ceremony that generations of Marines had experienced. Maria's family made the trip from Texas to witness her transformation from civilian to Marine. As she stood in formation, wearing the dress blue uniform that represented her new identity, she thought about the path that had led her to this moment. From her grandfather's farm to the parade deck at Paris Island, every experience had prepared her for what was to come. Her first duty assignment was to Camp Pendleton, California, where she would receive additional training before joining an operational unit. The base was vast, encompassing training facilities that supported Marines preparing for deployment around the world. Maria's excitement was tempered by the knowledge that she would need to prove herself all over again in this new environment. The Advanced Infantry Training Course challenged Maria in new ways. While boot camp had focused on basic military skills and discipline, AIT prepared Marines for the complexities of modern combat. Maria excelled in navigation, communications, and tactical movement, but it was during advanced marksmanship training that she truly distinguished herself. The course included instruction on multiple weapon systems, including the M4 carbine, M249 squad automatic weapon, and various precision rifles used by designated marksmen. Maria's adaptability impressed her instructors, as she quickly mastered the unique characteristics of each weapon system. Her scores consistently ranked among the highest in her class, but, more importantly, she demonstrated the ability to perform under stress and in challenging environmental conditions. One particular exercise stood out in her memory. The class was conducting night firing exercises using night vision equipment, a skill that would prove crucial in combat situations. Many Marines struggled with the transition from daylight to night vision shooting, finding it difficult to adapt their techniques to the different visual environment. Maria approached the challenge methodically, spending extra time during practice sessions to understand how the night vision devices affected her natural point of aim and sight picture. During the live fire exercise, Maria's performance was flawless. She engaged targets at distances ranging from 50 to 200 meters, achieving first-round hits on every engagement. Her success wasn't just about individual skill, she also served as a mentor for Marines who were struggling with the transition to night shooting. The instructors took note of her leadership potential and recommended her for additional training opportunities. As AIT concluded, Maria faced the next phase of her Marine Corps journey, assignment to an operational unit. Her performance had earned her assignment to the 1st Marine Division, one of the Corps' premier combat formations. She would be joining a rifle company as a designated marksman, a role that combined her shooting skills with tactical responsibilities that would challenge her in new ways. The transition from training environment to operational unit represented a significant milestone in Maria's development. She had proven her technical skills and demonstrated her potential for leadership, but now she would be working alongside experienced Marines who had deployed to combat zones around the world. The lessons her grandfather had taught her about responsibility and character would be tested in ways she was only beginning to understand. The morning sun blazed over Camp Pendleton as Marine Corporal Maria Santos reported to her new unit, Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 1st Marine Regiment. The company area buzzed with activity as Marines prepared for their upcoming deployment to Afghanistan. Maria carried her sea bag and rifle case, feeling the weight of expectation that came with joining an operational unit that had already completed 2 combat deployments. First Sergeant Michael Rodriguez greeted her at the company office, his weathered face bearing the marks of someone who had spent decades leading Marines in both garrison and combat environments. "Santos," he said, looking up from her service record book, "your marksmanship scores are impressive. But scores on a range are different from performance under fire. Your platoon sergeant will get you oriented with the team." Staff Sergeant Jennifer Hayes led the weapons squad where Maria would serve as a designated marksman. Hayes was one of the few female staff non-commissioned officers in the battalion, having earned her position through exceptional performance during previous deployments. She had fought in some of the most intense battles of the Iraq War and brought that experience to training the next generation of Marines. "We deploy in 8 weeks," Hayes explained as she walked Maria through the company area. "Between now and then, you'll participate in field exercises, advanced marksmanship training, and team-building events that will determine whether you're ready for combat. Your shooting scores got you here, but your ability to work as part of a team will determine whether you stay." Maria's first challenge came during a live fire exercise designed to simulate combat conditions. The scenario involved a squad-sized patrol that encountered enemy forces while moving through a mock Afghan village. Marines had to engage targets while moving, communicate effectively under stress, and demonstrate the discipline to distinguish between legitimate targets and non-combatants. Maria's role as designated marksman required her to provide precision fire support while the rifle squad maneuvered against enemy positions. She carried an M14 enhanced battle rifle equipped with an advanced optic system, a weapon that demanded both technical skill and tactical understanding. The exercise began before dawn, with the squad moving through terrain designed to replicate the mountainous regions of Afghanistan. When contact was initiated, Maria quickly identified her position and began engaging targets at extended ranges while her teammates moved closer to the enemy positions. Her first shot struck a target at 400 meters, followed immediately by a second hit at 350 meters. The suppressive fire she provided allowed the rifle squad to advance and complete their objective without taking casualties. "Outstanding performance, Santos," Captain James Morrison, the company commander, said during the after-action review. "You demonstrated exactly what we need from a designated marksman. Precision, discipline, and the ability to support your team's mission." The praise meant more to Maria than any individual recognition she had received during training. She was beginning to understand that success in the Marines was measured by the team's accomplishment, not individual achievements. Preparation for deployment intensified during the following weeks. Maria participated in urban warfare training, improvised explosive device recognition courses, and cultural awareness classes that would help her understand the environment where she would be operating. Each training event built upon previous experiences, creating a comprehensive foundation for combat operations. The marksmanship training during this period went far beyond anything Maria had experienced previously. She learned to engage moving targets while firing from unconventional positions, shoot accurately while wearing full combat equipment, and make rapid range estimations under time pressure. The training included scenarios where she had to engage multiple targets in sequence, prioritizing threats based on their danger to friendly forces. One exercise particularly challenged her understanding of the designated marksman role. The scenario involved a convoy that had been ambushed in a narrow valley, with enemy forces positioned on surrounding high ground. Maria's job was to eliminate specific threats while avoiding civilian casualties in a nearby village. The complexity of the scenario required her to consider not just shooting skill, but also the strategic implications of each engagement. Maria studied the terrain through her scope, identifying enemy positions while noting the locations of non-combatants who were attempting to flee the area. Her first target was an enemy machine gunner who posed the greatest threat to the convoy. The range was 500 meters, with a crosswind that would require careful compensation. She steadied her breathing, found her natural point of aim, and squeezed the trigger. The target fell immediately. Her second engagement was more challenging. An enemy sniper had positioned himself near a building where civilians were taking shelter. Maria had to wait for the right moment when the target was clearly separated from innocent people. When the opportunity presented itself, she took the shot with confidence, knowing that her precision would protect both her fellow Marines and the civilian population. "Your patience and discipline under pressure are exactly what we need in Afghanistan," Staff Sergeant Hayes told her during the debrief. "Combat isn't just about shooting accurately. It's about making the right decisions under extreme stress, and you've demonstrated that ability consistently." The final phase of pre-deployment training included a month-long exercise in the Mojave Desert, designed to replicate the harsh conditions Marines would face in Afghanistan. The exercise tested everything they had learned during the previous months, from individual skills to unit-level operations. For Maria, it was an opportunity to demonstrate that she had fully integrated into the team and was ready for the challenges ahead. The desert exercise began with a simulated insertion via helicopter, followed by a series of missions that required the company to establish forward operating bases, conduct patrols, and engage enemy forces across a variety of terrain. Maria's role evolved throughout the exercise, as she provided precision fire support during offensive operations and served as a scout during reconnaissance missions. During one particularly challenging mission, Maria's squad was tasked with clearing a series of buildings suspected of harboring enemy fighters. Her job was to provide overwatch from a position that offered clear fields of fire while the assault team moved through the structures. The complexity of the urban environment required constant communication and careful coordination to avoid friendly fire incidents. As the assault team entered the first building, Maria observed movement on a nearby rooftop. Through her scope, she could see an individual wearing civilian clothing but carrying an AK-47 rifle. The person was positioning himself to fire on the Marines below. Maria had seconds to make a decision that could save lives or result in a tragic mistake. She observed the target carefully, noting his weapon and his obvious intent to engage the Marines. When the individual raised his rifle toward her teammates, Maria engaged without hesitation. The 168-grain match bullet struck the target center mass, eliminating the threat before he could fire on the assault team below. Her quick thinking and precise shooting had prevented potential casualties among her unit. "Outstanding situational awareness and weapon employment," Captain Morrison said during the exercise debrief. "You identified a legitimate threat and eliminated it without endangering civilians or friendly forces. That's exactly the kind of judgment we need in combat." The captain's words carried special weight because they came after weeks of evaluation under the most realistic training conditions the Marine Corps could provide. As the desert exercise concluded, Maria reflected on how much she had grown since arriving at Camp Pendleton. She had proven her technical skills, but, more importantly, she had demonstrated her ability to function effectively as part of a team under extreme stress. The Marines around her had accepted her not because of her gender or her background, but because of her performance and her commitment to the mission. The announcement that Echo Company would deploy to Afghanistan's Helmand province came during the final week of training. Helmand was known as one of the most dangerous areas of operations, where Taliban forces maintained a strong presence and coalition forces faced daily threats from improvised explosive devices, small arms fire, and coordinated attacks. Maria felt both excitement and apprehension about the deployment, knowing that everything she had learned would be tested in actual combat. Staff Sergeant Hayes pulled Maria aside the day before departure. "Santos, you've exceeded every expectation since joining this unit. In Afghanistan, you'll face challenges that no amount of training can fully prepare you for. Remember that your job is to support the team and accomplish the mission. Trust your training, trust your teammates, and trust yourself." The flight to Afghanistan took Maria halfway around the world, from the familiar environment of Southern California to a land that had been torn by conflict for decades. As the transport aircraft descended toward Bagram Airfield, Maria looked out the small window at the rugged landscape below. Mountains stretched to the horizon, broken by valleys where small villages had existed for centuries. This would be her home for the next 7 months. Bagram Airfield was unlike anything Maria had experienced. The base hosted thousands of coalition forces from multiple nations, all working toward the common goal of bringing stability to Afghanistan. The constant sound of aircraft taking off and landing mixed with the noise of construction equipment and military vehicles. Despite the controlled chaos, there was an underlying sense of purpose that reminded everyone why they were there. Maria's first taste of Afghanistan's culture came during the orientation briefing, where cultural advisors explained the customs, traditions, and sensitivities that would be crucial to successful operations. She learned about the importance of respect for local traditions, the challenges of operating in a society where women's roles were heavily restricted, and the complex tribal dynamics that influenced everything from local politics to combat operations. The journey from Bagram to forward operating base Jackson in Helmand province took place aboard a CH-53C Stallion helicopter, flying low over terrain that seemed to extend endlessly in all directions. Maria watched the landscape pass below, noting the irrigation canals, small farms, and scattered compounds that would soon become familiar parts of her daily environment. FOB Jackson was a small outpost that housed approximately 200 Marines and sailors, surrounded by protective barriers and watchtowers that provided security against attack. The base included basic amenities like a chow hall, medical facility, and communication center, but the primary focus was on supporting combat operations throughout the surrounding area. For the next 7 months, this austere facility would be home. Maria's first mission in Afghanistan came just 3 days after arriving at FOB Jackson. Intelligence reports indicated that Taliban fighters were using a specific compound to store weapons and plan attacks against coalition forces. Echo Company was tasked with conducting a raid to capture or eliminate the enemy fighters and secure any intelligence materials found at the location. The mission briefing took place in a plywood building that served as the operations center. Captain Morrison used satellite imagery and intelligence reports to explain the target, the approach route, and each Marine's specific responsibilities during the operation. Maria would provide precision fire support from an overwatch position while the assault teams moved on the target compound. As the sun set over Helmand province, Maria prepared her equipment for her first combat mission. She checked and rechecked her M14 rifle, ensuring that every component was properly maintained and ready for action. The 168 grain match ammunition she carried had been individually inspected, and her optics system had been zeroed and tested under various lighting conditions. The helicopter insertion took place under cover of darkness, with the aircraft flying without lights to avoid detection by enemy forces. Maria could see the green glow of night vision equipment as her fellow Marines prepared for the mission ahead. In a few hours, everything she had trained for would be tested in actual combat, where the stakes were measured in human lives rather than training scores. The helicopter's rotors beat against the thin Afghan air as Maria Santos gripped her M14 rifle, watching the barren landscape rush past through the aircraft's small windows. This was her first combat mission, and the weight of responsibility felt heavier than any equipment she carried. 3 months into her deployment with Echo Company, Maria had already established herself as one of the most reliable designated marksmen in the battalion, but tonight would test everything she had learned about war, leadership, and herself. The target compound sat in a valley surrounded by terraced fields that had been cultivated for generations. Intelligence reports indicated that Taliban fighters had been using the location to coordinate attacks against coalition forces, storing weapons and explosive devices that threatened both military convoys and civilian populations. Captain Morrison's plan called for a coordinated assault that would capture or eliminate the enemy fighters while minimizing damage to surrounding areas. Maria's position on the mission was crucial. She would establish an overwatch position on a ridgeline 600 meters from the target compound, providing precision fire support for the assault teams while watching for enemy reinforcements or escape attempts. Her M14 enhanced battle rifle was equipped with a night vision scope that would allow her to engage targets in complete darkness, giving the Marines a significant advantage during the night operation. As the helicopter approached the landing zone, Maria conducted her final equipment checks. Her rifle was loaded with 20 rounds of 168 grain match ammunition, specifically designed for long-range accuracy. Additional magazines were secured in her tactical vest, along with communications equipment that would keep her connected to the assault teams throughout the operation. Every piece of gear had been tested and positioned for maximum efficiency during the intense action that was about to unfold. The insertion was flawless. Marines moved quickly and silently from the helicopter to their designated positions, using night vision equipment to navigate the rocky terrain without detection. Maria followed her team leader, Staff Sergeant Hayes, as they climbed toward the overwatch position that would serve as her firing platform for the next several hours. The weight of her equipment made the climb challenging, but months of training had prepared her body for the physical demands of combat operations. Reaching the overwatch position, Maria immediately began scanning the target area through her scope. The compound consisted of several buildings surrounded by mud walls, with multiple entry points that the assault teams would need to clear systematically. Through her night vision scope, she could see thermal signatures that indicated the presence of people inside the buildings, though she couldn't yet determine whether they were enemy fighters or innocent civilians. Overwatch in position, Maria whispered into her radio, confirming that she was ready to provide fire support. Captain Morrison's voice crackled through her earpiece, coordinating the movement of assault teams toward their objectives. The precision required for this type of operation was enormous, as a single mistake could result in civilian casualties or friendly fire incidents that would compromise the mission and endanger lives. The first shots of the engagement came from the compound, as Taliban fighters opened fire on the approaching Marines. Muzzle flashes erupted from multiple positions within the target area, and Maria immediately began identifying priority targets through her scope. Her training had taught her to prioritize threats based on their danger to friendly forces, and she quickly identified an enemy machine gunner who was directing sustained fire toward the assault teams. Maria's first combat shot was a moment that would stay with her for the rest of her life. She steadied her breathing, found her natural point of aim, and squeezed the trigger with the same precision she had demonstrated on countless training ranges. The 168 grain bullet traveled 550 meters in less than a second, striking the enemy machine gunner center mass and immediately eliminating the threat to the Marines advancing below. "Good hit, Overwatch," Staff Sergeant Hayes' voice came through the radio. "Assault teams are moving to secondary positions." Maria continued scanning for additional targets, knowing that her role was to provide continuous fire support throughout the operation. The intensity of combat was unlike anything she had experienced during training, but her muscle memory took over as she identified and engaged additional threats. Her second engagement was more challenging. An enemy sniper had positioned himself in a building window, using the cover of darkness to engage Marines who were moving between buildings. Maria could see the thermal signature through her scope, but the target was partially concealed by the window frame. She had to wait for the right moment when the enemy fighter exposed himself enough to ensure a clean shot that wouldn't endanger any civilians who might be in the building. When the opportunity presented itself, Maria took the shot without hesitation. The enemy sniper fell immediately, his weapon clattering to the ground as the assault teams continued their advance. Her precision fire support was allowing the Marines to move more aggressively, knowing that threats were being eliminated before they could inflict casualties on the advancing forces. The operation continued for 3 hours, with Maria engaging a total of 6 enemy fighters from her overwatch position. Each shot was carefully considered and precisely placed, demonstrating the marksmanship skills that had earned her assignment to the designated marksman role. When the compound was finally secured, 13 Taliban fighters had been killed or captured, along with a significant cache of weapons and explosive devices that would no longer threaten coalition forces or Afghan civilians. Outstanding performance, Santos, Captain Morrison said during the post-mission debrief. Your fire support was critical to the success of this operation. You eliminated key threats that allowed the assault teams to complete their mission with zero friendly casualties. The captain's words carried special weight because they came after Maria's first experience with actual combat, where theoretical knowledge had been tested against the harsh realities of war. Word of Maria's performance spread throughout the battalion, earning her recognition as one of the most effective designated marksmen in the unit. Her combination of technical skill and tactical judgment made her a valuable asset for future operations, and she found herself assigned to increasingly complex missions that required the highest levels of precision and reliability. 3 weeks after the compound raid, Maria faced her most challenging mission yet. Intelligence reports indicated that a high-value Taliban commander was planning a major attack against a nearby Afghan government facility. The commander was known to be extremely cautious, rarely exposing himself to potential coalition attacks. When he did appear, it was usually for brief periods that offered only small windows of opportunity for engagement. The mission required Maria to establish a concealed position in an abandoned building overlooking the suspected meeting location. She would need to remain undetected for potentially 24 hours, waiting for the target to appear while avoiding detection by enemy forces that patrolled the area regularly. The physical and mental demands of such an assignment tested every aspect of her training and preparation. Maria spent hours preparing for the mission, studying satellite imagery and intelligence reports that would help her understand the target's patterns and behavior. She learned that the commander was a former Afghan military officer who had defected to the Taliban, bringing with him tactical knowledge that made him particularly dangerous to coalition forces. His capture or elimination would significantly disrupt Taliban operations in the region. The insertion for the mission took place during a dust storm that provided natural concealment but made navigation extremely difficult. Maria and her spotter, Corporal James Wilson, moved carefully through the storm to reach their hide site, carrying enough food and water for 3 days along with their weapons and communication equipment. The building they selected had been damaged by previous fighting but offered excellent fields of fire toward the target area. Setting up the hide site required careful attention to detail that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Maria arranged her equipment to provide maximum effectiveness while remaining completely concealed from observation. Her M14 rifle was positioned to cover multiple potential target locations, while her scope was adjusted for the specific ranges and environmental conditions she would encounter. The wait began before dawn on the second day, as intelligence indicated that target commander might appear during morning hours when Taliban forces typically conducted their planning meetings. Maria remained motionless for hours, scanning the target area through her scope while Corporal Wilson monitored radio communications and watched for signs of enemy activity in their vicinity. At 1047 hours, the target appeared. Through her scope, Maria could see the Taliban commander meeting with several other fighters near a damaged building 650 meters away. The range was at the edge of her effective engagement envelope, requiring precise calculation of wind speed, atmospheric conditions, and bullet trajectory. She had one opportunity to eliminate the target before he disappeared again, potentially for weeks or months. Maria adjusted her scope for the extended range, accounting for the morning wind that was blowing at approximately 8 miles per hour from her left front. She controlled her breathing, finding the natural respiratory pause that would provide maximum stability for the shot. Through her scope, she could see the target clearly, though he was surrounded by other individuals who made the shot technically complex. The shot broke cleanly, with the rifle's recoil driving straight back against Maria's shoulder. Through her scope, she watched as the 168-grain bullet struck the Taliban commander center mass, dropping him immediately. The other fighters scattered, but the primary objective had been accomplished. The high-value target who had been responsible for multiple attacks against coalition forces would no longer threaten the security of the region. Target down, Maria whispered into her radio, confirming the successful engagement to the operations center. The extraction was conducted without incident, with Maria and her spotter reaching friendly forces before Taliban fighters could organize a response to the attack. The mission was considered one of the most successful sniper operations conducted by the battalion during the deployment. Recognition for Maria's achievements came from multiple sources. The battalion commander personally commended her performance, noting that her precision fire support had been instrumental in several successful operations. Her company commander recommended her for promotion ahead of her peers, recognizing her technical skills and leadership potential. Most importantly, her fellow Marines had accepted her as an integral part of the team, judging her by her performance rather than her background or gender. The deployment to Afghanistan was scheduled to end in 6 weeks, but Maria's reputation had grown to the point where higher headquarters requested her expertise for special operations that required the highest levels of marksmanship skill. She was temporarily assigned to work with Special Operations Forces on missions that targeted high-value enemy leaders throughout the region. Working with Special Operations Forces exposed Maria to a different level of military professionalism and capability. These Marines and sailors had been selected for their exceptional skills and were equipped with the most advanced weapons and equipment available to American forces. For Maria, it was an opportunity to learn from the best marksmen in the military while contributing her own skills to critical national security missions. During one operation with Force Reconnaissance Marines, Maria was tasked with providing precision fire support for a mission to capture a Taliban leader who was coordinating attacks against convoy routes used by coalition forces. The operation required infiltration into enemy-controlled territory, where detection would almost certainly result in a major firefight that could jeopardize both the mission and the lives of the entire team. The target was located in a compound that was heavily defended and situated in terrain that offered few concealed approach routes. Maria's job was to eliminate sentries and other threats that might compromise the assault team's approach, doing so silently and without alerting other enemy forces in the area. The technical demands of the mission were extraordinary, requiring shots at extended ranges under challenging environmental conditions. Maria successfully engaged 4 enemy sentries during the operation, each shot placed with the precision necessary to ensure immediate incapacitation without creating noise that would alert other defenders. Her fire support enabled the assault team to reach their objective undetected, resulting in the capture of the high-value target along with intelligence materials that led to the disruption of multiple planned attacks. "Your performance has been exceptional," Major Sarah Collins, the Special Operations Forces liaison officer, told Maria after the mission. "We're going to recommend you for advanced marksmanship training when you return to the United States. The Marine Corps needs instructors who can train the next generation of marksmen to the standards you've demonstrated." As Maria's deployment neared its end, she reflected on everything she had experienced during 7 months in Afghanistan. She had proven herself in combat, earned the respect of her peers and superiors, and contributed to missions that had a direct impact on national security. The skills her grandfather had taught her on a small farm in Texas had evolved into capabilities that served her country at the highest levels of military operations. The final mission of her deployment was a fitting culmination of her time in Afghanistan. Intelligence reports indicated that Taliban forces were planning a major attack against Forward Operating Base Jackson, using weapons and explosives that had been smuggled into the area over several weeks. Maria was assigned to lead a team of designated marksmen in providing overwatch for patrols that were searching for the enemy staging areas. The mission lasted 3 days, with Maria's team moving through terrain that offered excellent concealment but required careful navigation to avoid enemy observation. On the second day, they identified a Taliban weapons cache hidden in a series of caves that had been overlooked by previous patrols. Maria's team provided security while engineers destroyed the weapons and explosives, eliminating the threat to the base and surrounding civilian populations. "Outstanding leadership and tactical judgment," Captain Morrison wrote in Maria's fitness report. Corporal Santos has consistently exceeded expectations throughout this deployment, demonstrating the technical skills and leadership potential that mark her as one of the finest Marines in this command. She is ready for increased responsibility and advanced training opportunities. The flight home from Afghanistan took Maria back to a United States that seemed both familiar and strange after 7 months of combat operations. The transition from the harsh realities of war to the peaceful environment of home was challenging, but Maria carried with her the confidence that came from having tested herself against the ultimate standard, combat performance under fire. The return from Afghanistan marked a turning point in Sergeant Maria Santos's military career. Her exceptional performance in combat had earned her recognition throughout the Marine Corps, but she quickly discovered that success in war zones didn't automatically translate to acceptance in all military environments. Back at Camp Pendleton, Maria found herself navigating challenges that were different from anything she had faced in combat, where performance mattered more than politics or personal prejudices. Her first assignment after returning from deployment was as an instructor at the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School, a prestigious position that reflected her demonstrated expertise in precision marksmanship. The school trained Marines who would serve as designated marksmen and scout snipers throughout the Corps, requiring instructors who could teach both technical skills and the tactical judgment necessary for success in combat environments. The Scout Sniper School was located in a remote section of Camp Pendleton, surrounded by training ranges that allowed students to practice under conditions that closely replicated combat environments. Maria was one of only 3 female instructors in the school's history, a fact that created both opportunities and challenges as she worked to establish her credibility with students and fellow instructors who had varying levels of acceptance for women in combat roles. Her first class included 24 Marines who had been selected for Scout Sniper training based on their performance in previous assignments. The students ranged from lance corporals with limited experience to staff sergeants who had completed multiple combat deployments. Maria's challenge was to provide instruction that would benefit Marines at all experience levels while maintaining the demanding standards that had made the Scout Sniper School one of the most respected training programs in the military. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maria said as she addressed her first class, "over the next 12 weeks, you will learn skills that can mean the difference between life and death in combat. My job is to ensure that you master these skills to the highest possible standard. Your job is to approach this training with the seriousness and dedication that the mission requires." The course curriculum included instruction in camouflage and concealment, observation and reporting, range estimation, ballistics, and advanced marksmanship techniques. Maria's expertise was particularly valuable in the marksmanship phases, where students learned to engage targets at extended ranges under varying environmental conditions. Her combat experience provided credibility that enhanced every lesson she taught. During one training exercise, Maria noticed that several students were struggling with wind compensation techniques, a skill that was crucial for accurate shooting at extended ranges. Rather than simply repeating the textbook instruction, she drew on her combat experience to provide practical examples that helped the students understand how environmental factors affected bullet trajectory. "In Afghanistan," she explained, "I had to engage a high-value target at 650 meters during a mission where wind conditions were constantly changing. The difference between success and failure wasn't just about calculating the wind speed, but understanding how the terrain affected air movement and adjusting your point of aim accordingly." The students listened intently, recognizing that they were receiving instruction from someone who had successfully applied these techniques under the most demanding conditions. Maria's teaching methods were innovative and effective, but she soon discovered that not all of her fellow instructors were supportive of her presence in the school. Master Sergeant David Knox, the senior instructor for fieldcraft training, had served in the Marines for 18 years and held traditional views about women in combat roles. While he never directly challenged Maria's qualifications, his comments and behavior made it clear that he questioned whether women belonged in Scout Sniper training. "Santos," Knox said during one instructor meeting, "your marksmanship skills are impressive, but Scout Sniper work requires more than just shooting ability. These Marines will face physical and mental challenges that go beyond what most people can handle." The implication was clear. He believed that Maria's gender made her unsuitable for the full range of responsibilities required in Scout Sniper operations. Maria responded to such challenges with professional composure and superior performance. Rather than engaging in arguments about gender roles, she focused on demonstrating her capabilities through her work with students and her contributions to the training program. Her approach was to let her results speak for themselves, knowing that excellence was the most effective response to skepticism or prejudice. Her breakthrough moment came during a field exercise that tested students' ability to conduct reconnaissance and surveillance missions under realistic conditions. The exercise required students to infiltrate enemy territory, establish observation posts, and provide intelligence reports while avoiding detection by opposing forces. Maria was assigned to evaluate student performance in the field, observing their techniques and providing feedback that would improve their capabilities. During the exercise, one student team found themselves in a position where they had been detected by opposing forces and were in danger of being captured or eliminated. The student team leader, Corporal Michael Anderson, made a series of tactical errors that compromised their concealed position and exposed them to enemy observation. The situation required immediate intervention to prevent the exercise from becoming a safety hazard. Maria moved quickly to reach the compromised team, using advanced fieldcraft techniques to approach their position without being detected by the opposing forces. Her movement was flawless, demonstrating the skills that had kept her alive during multiple combat missions in Afghanistan. When she reached the student team, she provided immediate guidance that allowed them to escape from the dangerous situation and complete their mission. "Outstanding tactical movement and leadership," commented Lieutenant Colonel James Parker, the school commanding officer, who had observed Maria's intervention during the exercise. "You demonstrated exactly the kind of expertise and judgment that we need in our instructor staff." More importantly, the students who had witnessed her performance gained a new level of respect for her capabilities that transcended any preconceptions about gender roles. Master Sergeant Knox's attitude toward Maria began to change after the field exercise. He had observed her performance firsthand and could no longer question her technical competence or tactical judgment. While he might still have reservations about women in combat roles, he couldn't deny that Maria had proven herself capable of performing at the highest levels under the most demanding conditions. "Santos," Knox said privately after the exercise, "I may not agree with all the changes happening in the Corps, but I respect competence when I see it. You've earned your place here through performance, not politics." The acknowledgement was significant because it came from someone who had initially been skeptical of her qualifications. Maria's success as an instructor led to recognition beyond the Scout Sniper School. Her innovative teaching methods and demonstrated expertise caught the attention of senior leaders throughout the Marine Corps, who were looking for qualified instructors to support expanding training programs. She was selected to participate in the development of new curriculum for advanced marksmanship training that would be implemented throughout the Corps. The curriculum development project brought Maria into contact with senior officers and non-commissioned officers from throughout the Marine Corps, including some who held traditional views about women in combat roles. Her challenge was to contribute her expertise while navigating the complex politics that surrounded discussions about gender integration in the military. During one curriculum planning meeting, Brigadier General Robert Harrison raised concerns about the physical demands of advanced marksmanship training, suggesting that modifications might be necessary to accommodate female Marines. The general's comments reflected a perspective that women needed different standards or accommodations to succeed in military training. "General," Maria responded respectfully but firmly, "my experience suggests that the most effective approach is to maintain consistent standards while ensuring that training methods are based on sound principles rather than assumptions about capabilities. The techniques that work for male Marines work equally well for female Marines when they're properly taught and consistently applied." Her response demonstrated both technical knowledge and professional confidence, impressing the senior officers in the meeting while establishing her credibility as a subject matter expert. General Harrison seemed surprised by her directness, but he appeared to consider her perspective as the discussion continued. The curriculum that Maria helped develop was implemented throughout the Marine Corps, improving marksmanship training for thousands of Marines who would benefit from the lessons she had learned through combat experience and innovative instruction. Her contributions to the project were recognized through assignment to increasingly responsible positions that would test her leadership abilities in new ways. Her next assignment was as the Senior Enlisted Advisor for the Marine Corps Marksmanship Unit, a position that required her to oversee competitive shooting programs while also supporting operational training requirements throughout the Corps. The position represented a significant advancement in her career, but it also brought her into environments where her presence challenged long-established traditions and perspectives. The Marine Corps Marksmanship Unit was headquartered at Marine Barracks, Washington, D.C., where it supported both competitive shooting programs and ceremonial functions in the nation's capital. Maria's responsibilities included managing training programs, coordinating with civilian marksmanship organizations, and representing the Marine Corps at shooting competitions throughout the United States and internationally. Her first major challenge in the new position came during preparations for the annual inter-service competition, where teams from all military branches competed in precision shooting events. Maria was responsible for selecting and training the Marine Corps team, a process that required her to evaluate the best marksmen from throughout the Corps while managing the egos and expectations that came with elite-level competition. The team selection process revealed some of the ongoing challenges related to gender integration in military organizations. Several male Marines who had been considered for the team questioned whether selection standards were being modified to ensure female representation, despite Maria's consistent emphasis on performance-based criteria. Sergeant Santos, Staff Sergeant Brian Miller said after learning that he had not been selected for the team, "I'm just wondering whether the best shooters are being chosen, or whether there are other factors being considered." The implication was clear: he believed that gender was influencing selection decisions. Maria addressed such concerns directly and professionally. The selection criteria are based entirely on demonstrated performance under competitive conditions, she explained. Every Marine on this team earned their position by outperforming their peers in quantifiable, measurable ways. If you have specific questions about the selection process, I'm happy to review the scores and statistics that supported each decision. Her approach consistently emphasized objective performance criteria, removing any basis for complaints about bias or political considerations. The Marines who were selected for the team represented the best marksmen available, regardless of gender, background, or personal connections. The inter-service competition was held at Fort Benning, Georgia, where teams from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps competed in multiple shooting disciplines. Maria served as both team coach and competitor, participating in several individual events while also managing the overall Marine Corps effort. The competition attracted hundreds of spectators, including senior military leaders who were interested in the results. Maria's individual performance was exceptional, winning gold medals in 3 different shooting disciplines while setting new records in 2 events. Her success was particularly noteworthy because she was competing against the best marksmen from all military services, many of whom had years of experience in competitive shooting. Her victories were based purely on superior performance, eliminating any questions about her qualifications or capabilities. Outstanding representation of the Marine Corps, General Patricia Williams, the assistant commandant, told Maria after the competition. "Your performance demonstrates the high standards we expect from all Marines, regardless of their background or specialty." The general's comments were significant because they came from the highest-ranking female officer in the Marine Corps, someone who understood the challenges associated with breaking barriers in military organizations. The success at the inter-service competition led to Maria's selection for international competition, representing the United States at the World Military Championships in Switzerland. The assignment required her to compete against the best military marksmen from around the world, while also serving as an ambassador for American military values and professionalism. Preparing for international competition required months of intensive training that pushed Maria's skills to new levels. She worked with civilian coaches who specialized in competitive shooting, learning techniques that complemented her military training while adapting to the specific requirements of international competition rules and equipment. The World Military Championships included competitors from 43 countries, representing every continent and a wide range of military traditions and training methods. Maria was one of only 12 female competitors in the precision rifle events, making her performance particularly significant for the advancement of women in military marksmanship. Her performance in Switzerland exceeded all expectations. She won gold medals in 2 individual events and contributed to a team gold medal that helped establish the United States as the dominant force in military marksmanship competition. Her success attracted international media attention, with stories about her achievements appearing in military publications around the world. "Maria Santos represents the very best of American military tradition," wrote Colonel Sarah Thompson in Marine Corps Times. "Her achievements demonstrate that excellence knows no boundaries of gender, background, or circumstance. She has earned her success through dedication, hard work, and an unwavering commitment to the highest standards." Returning from international competition, Maria found that her reputation had grown to the point where she was being considered for assignments that would test her leadership abilities at higher levels of responsibility. Senior leaders throughout the Marine Corps had taken notice of her achievements, recognizing her as a role model for the next generation of Marines while also acknowledging her potential for continued advancement. Her next assignment would take her to Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia, where she would serve as an instructor at the Officer Candidates School. The position represented a significant career milestone, as it required her to train future Marine Corps officers who would lead Marines in combat environments around the world. For Maria, it was an opportunity to influence the next generation of military leaders while continuing to advance her own professional development. The morning of September 15 started like any other at the Marine Corps Advanced Marksmanship Training Center at Quantico. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos had been assigned as the senior instructor for a special demonstration designed to showcase the latest in precision rifle technology to a group of visiting military dignitaries and defense contractors. The event was part of a broader initiative to modernize military training programs and evaluate new equipment that could enhance combat effectiveness. Among the distinguished visitors was Rear Admiral Charles Harrison, a career officer who had earned his reputation through submarine warfare and naval operations, but who held strong opinions about military tradition and the role of women in combat positions. Harrison had been invited to observe the demonstration as part of his current assignment overseeing joint service training initiatives, though his expertise lay far from the world of precision marksmanship. The demonstration was scheduled to take place at the 1,000-meter range, where Maria would showcase the capabilities of the new Barrett M107A 1.50 caliber rifle system. The weapon represented the cutting edge of precision rifle technology, capable of engaging targets at extended ranges with accuracy that had previously been impossible to achieve consistently. 6 steel targets had been positioned at various ranges and angles to demonstrate the rifle's versatility and Maria's skill as a marksman. Maria had spent weeks preparing for the demonstration, familiarizing herself with every aspect of the Barrett system and developing a shooting sequence that would highlight its capabilities while also showcasing the training methods used to develop expert marksmen. She had test-fired the rifle extensively, adjusting the optic system and developing ammunition loads that would provide optimal accuracy under the specific conditions expected during the demonstration. The morning briefing included detailed explanations of the rifle system, the training methodology, and the safety procedures that would govern the demonstration. Maria presented the technical specifications with the confidence that came from both extensive preparation and years of experience with similar weapons systems. Her presentation impressed most of the observers, who recognized her expertise and professionalism. Admiral Harrison, however, seemed skeptical from the beginning. During the briefing, he asked several questions that appeared designed to challenge Maria's technical knowledge rather than to gain understanding of the demonstration. His tone and body language suggested that he viewed her presence as an instructor with some degree of skepticism, though he maintained the surface courtesy expected in professional military environments. Staff Sergeant Admiral Harrison said during the question period, "This is certainly impressive technology, but I'm curious about the practical applications in real-world scenarios. How often would a Marine actually need to engage targets at these extended ranges?" His question was legitimate, but the way he asked it seemed to imply that the entire demonstration was more show than substance. Maria responded professionally, explaining the tactical applications of precision rifles in combat environments, drawing on her experience in Afghanistan to provide specific examples of situations where long-range engagement capabilities had proven crucial. Her answer was detailed and well-informed, addressing both the technical and tactical aspects of the Admiral's question. As the group moved to the firing line, Maria began her final equipment checks. The Barrett M107A1 weighed nearly 30 pounds when fully loaded, and its .50 caliber ammunition demanded absolute precision in handling and employment. She verified that the rifle was properly zeroed, checked the scope settings, and ensured that all safety procedures were in place for the demonstration. The first phase of the demonstration went exactly as planned. Maria engaged the 6 targets in sequence, starting with the closest at 600 meters and working her way back to the most distant at 1,000 meters. Each shot was precisely placed, demonstrating both the rifle's capabilities and the skill required to employ it effectively. The observers watched through spotting scopes as each target fell cleanly, cut down by the massive .50 caliber bullets. "Outstanding shooting, Staff Sergeant," commented Brigadier General Patricia Morrison, the senior Marine Corps representative at the demonstration. You're demonstrating exactly why our investment in advanced training and equipment continues to pay dividends in operational environments." The general's praise reflected not just Maria's marksmanship, but also her professional presentation throughout the morning's events. Admiral Harrison, however, remained skeptical. As Maria prepared to reset the targets for a second sequence, he approached the firing line with what appeared to be more than casual interest. "Staff Sergeant," he said, "that's certainly impressive shooting, but I'm curious about the physical demands of this weapon system. It seems like it might be challenging for some Marines to handle effectively." The comment contained an obvious implication about gender and physical capability, though Harrison was careful not to state his concerns directly. Maria recognized the challenge inherent in his words but chose to respond with demonstration rather than discussion. "Sir," she said, "the Barrett system does require proper training and technique, but it's designed to be employed effectively by any Marine who masters those fundamentals. What happened next would be remembered and discussed throughout the Marine Corps for years to come." Admiral Harrison stepped closer to the firing line, reaching toward the Barrett rifle with what appeared to be casual interest but with movements that suggested he intended to examine the weapon more closely. His approach was presumptuous and inappropriate, given that Maria was still conducting the demonstration and remained responsible for the weapon's safety and employment. "Let me take a look at this system," Harrison said, his hand moving toward the rifle's action. The presumption inherent in his approach was staggering. He was attempting to take control of a weapon during an active demonstration, without permission, and in violation of basic safety protocols that govern range operations. His action suggested that he viewed Maria's role as secondary to his own authority as a senior officer. Maria's response was immediate and decisive. Her left hand moved smoothly but firmly to intercept Harrison's reach, grasping his wrist and redirecting his movement away from the rifle. The defensive motion was perfectly executed, using precisely the amount of force necessary to prevent his interference without causing injury or escalating the confrontation. Her military training had taught her to respond decisively to unauthorized interference with weapons systems. "Sir," Maria said clearly, her voice carrying enough volume to be heard by all observers, "for safety reasons, I need to maintain control of the weapon system during live fire operations. If you'd like to examine the rifle, I'll be happy to accommodate that request during the appropriate time in the demonstration sequence." The words were perfectly chosen, professional, respectful, but absolutely clear about the boundaries that had been crossed. Harrison's face showed surprise and what might have been embarrassment as he realized that his presumptuous approach had been publicly rebuffed by a staff sergeant who was simply following proper safety procedures and maintaining professional standards. The moment of tension lasted only seconds, but its impact would resonate far beyond the immediate situation. Every observer had witnessed an interaction that highlighted questions about authority, gender, professionalism, and military protocol. Maria had handled the situation with perfect composure, defending appropriate boundaries while maintaining respect for rank and protocol. "Of course," Staff Sergeant Admiral Harrison said, stepping back from the firing line. His tone suggested that he recognized the inappropriateness of his approach, though his expression indicated some lingering frustration at being redirected by a junior enlisted Marine. The other observers watched the interaction with interest, recognizing that they had witnessed something significant. Maria returned her attention to the demonstration, but now with an added level of focus that came from knowing that every aspect of her performance was being scrutinized more intensely than before. The confrontation with Admiral Harrison had raised the stakes, transforming what should have been a routine demonstration into a proving ground for her professional competence and personal character. The second sequence of the demonstration was even more impressive than the first. Maria engaged the 6 targets again, but this time under conditions that tested her ability to perform under pressure. The wind had increased, adding complexity to the ballistic calculations required for accurate shooting. The targets had been repositioned at slightly different angles, requiring rapid assessment and adjustment. Each shot was perfect. The massive .50 caliber bullets struck their targets with precision that seemed almost supernatural to observers who were unfamiliar with the capabilities of expert marksmen. Maria's breathing was controlled, her movements economical, her focus absolute. She was demonstrating not just marksmanship skill, but the mental discipline required to perform complex tasks under intense scrutiny. The final target fell just as cleanly as the first, completing a demonstration that had showcased both advanced weapon technology and the human expertise required to employ it effectively. The observers applauded, recognizing that they had witnessed something exceptional. For Maria, the successful completion of the demonstration represented validation of everything she had worked to achieve throughout her military career. "Absolutely outstanding," General Morrison said as Maria secured the rifle and began the post-demonstration safety procedures. "That was a perfect example of why our investment in training and technology continues to provide superior capabilities for our operational forces." The general's comments reflected not just the technical success of the demonstration, but also recognition of Maria's professionalism throughout the challenging morning. Admiral Harrison approached Maria as she completed her equipment checks, his demeanor noticeably different from his earlier confrontational attitude. "Staff Sergeant," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology. My approach to your weapon system was inappropriate and unprofessional. You handled the situation exactly as you should have, and your shooting was truly exceptional." The apology was unexpected and significant. It demonstrated that Harrison had recognized his error and was willing to acknowledge it publicly, despite the potential embarrassment of admitting that he had been corrected by a junior enlisted Marine. For Maria, the apology represented validation of her professional approach to a challenging situation. "Thank you, sir," Maria replied respectfully. "I appreciate your understanding of the safety protocols that govern these demonstrations. The Barrett system is an exceptional weapon, but it requires careful handling and proper procedures to employ safely and effectively." Her response was gracious but also educational, helping Harrison understand the technical reasons behind the protocols he had inadvertently violated. The demonstration concluded with detailed discussions about the training methodologies and equipment requirements that would be needed to field the Barrett system more widely throughout the Marine Corps. Maria's expertise was evident throughout these discussions, as she provided insights based on her extensive experience with precision rifle systems and her understanding of the training challenges involved in developing expert marksmen. Word of the demonstration and the confrontation with Admiral Harrison spread quickly throughout the Marine Corps community. The story became a symbol of changing attitudes about women in combat roles, professional standards, and the importance of merit-based evaluation of military personnel. Maria's handling of the situation was universally praised as an example of how to maintain professional standards while respecting military protocol. Major General David Roberts, the commanding general of Marine Corps Training and Education Command, called Maria to his office the following week to discuss the demonstration and its aftermath. "Staff Sergeant Santos," he said, "your performance last week was exemplary in every respect. You demonstrated technical expertise, professional composure, and leadership that reflects credit on yourself and the Marine Corps." The general's recognition was significant, but, more importantly, it led to opportunities that would allow Maria to continue advancing her career while contributing to the professional development of future Marines. She was selected for promotion to gunnery sergeant ahead of her peers and assigned to develop advanced training programs that would benefit Marines throughout the Corps. The Barrett demonstration became a turning point not just in Maria's career, but in broader discussions about gender integration and professional standards in the military. Her example helped demonstrate that success should be measured by performance rather than preconceptions, and that professional competence could overcome even the most entrenched biases and traditional attitudes. Years later, when Maria had advanced to become one of the senior enlisted advisors in the Marine Corps, she would often reflect on the lessons learned during that demonstration at Quantico. The confrontation with Admiral Harrison had tested everything she believed about professionalism, integrity, and the importance of maintaining standards regardless of external pressures. Her response had defined not just that moment, but the trajectory of her entire career. The 6 targets that fell during the demonstration represented more than just marksmanship excellence. They symbolized the breaking down of barriers, the validation of merit-based evaluation, and the triumph of professional competence over personal prejudice. Maria's precision that day had struck targets that were both physical and metaphorical, opening doors for future generations of Marines who would benefit from the precedent she had established. Admiral Harrison, to his credit, became one of Maria's most vocal supporters in the years that followed. He often spoke about the demonstration as a learning experience that had challenged his own assumptions and helped him understand the importance of judging military personnel by their performance rather than their demographics. His evolution became an example of how professional military officers could grow and adapt to changing realities while maintaining their commitment to excellence and military values. The sound of metal hitting concrete echoed across the shooting range as Admiral Harrison's hand met the unforgiving ground. 6 targets stood pristine and untouched just moments before. Now they lay in tatters, each bearing the precise signature of a marksman who had just proven that respect isn't given based on rank alone, it's earned through skill, determination, and the courage to stand your ground when someone tries to take what's rightfully yours. This isn't just another military story. This is the account of Sergeant Maria Santos, a woman who walked into a world where her presence was questioned, her abilities doubted, and her right to hold a weapon challenged by those who should have been leading by example. What happened in those crucial moments when an admiral's arrogance met an unstoppable force would reshape everything, not just for Maria, but for every woman who ever had to prove she belonged in a place others claimed was not meant for her. In a world where strength is measured by how hard you can pull a trigger, Maria was about to show everyone that true power comes from knowing exactly when to pull it and when to show restraint. The .50 caliber rifle in her hands wasn't just a weapon, it was a statement. And the 6 targets that were about to fall would send a message that would echo through the ranks for years to come. Some battles are fought with words. Some with politics. This one was fought with precision, skill, and the kind of quiet confidence that can only come from someone who has earned every inch of ground they stand on. What Admiral Harrison thought would be a simple demonstration of authority became the moment that proved why underestimating Sergeant Santos, or any woman like her, was the biggest mistake he could possibly make.